There is a specific feeling that nobody in a leadership position has ever described to me accurately, so I'm going to try. You're in a room. Someone is working through a problem out loud. You can see the answer. You've seen it for the last 4 minutes, and you are sitting very still, saying nothing, watching them take the long way around something that would have taken you 40 seconds. And the effort of not speaking, the actual physical effort of staying in your chair and letting them finish, is almost unbearable. There's a particular quality to it. It isn't anger. It isn't contempt. It's closer to the feeling of watching someone carry something heavy when you could take it from them in a single movement. The restraint required to stay still, the almost physical pull toward just fixing it. If you know that feeling. This episode is for you. CEO, MD, founder, director. It doesn't matter what it says on the door. Because what I want to talk about today is not a strategy problem. It is not a delegation problem. It is not a trust problem. It is the specific, private, never-named experience of being the most capable person in a system you built, and what that capability is quietly doing to everything around you. Most people at this level have never had this named for them, not because it isn't common. It is extraordinarily common among the highest performers I have ever worked alongside, but because the people who need to hear it most are surrounded by people who benefit in some way from not saying it. So, I'm saying it. That sensation, the almost unbearable effort of watching someone be slower and less precise than you, is not impatience. It is not arrogance. It is not a personality flaw you need to manage. It is the nervous system of someone who built their entire career on being the fastest, most accurate processor in the room. It kept you safe. It got you promoted. It built the thing you now run. And it is now, quietly, consistently, invisibly, the most expensive habit you have. Here's what happens inside a team when the most capable person in the room keeps solving the problem. Not immediately, not dramatically, over time. The team stops finishing thoughts, not because they're lazy, not because they don't care, because there is no longer any point in arriving at the answer independently when the answer will arrive from you, faster, cleaner, and more precisely, before they've completed the sentence. So they stop. They wait. They learn, at a level below conscious decision, that the correct response to a hard problem in this organization is to surface it upward and let the most capable person resolve it. The team's own problem-solving capacity doesn't disappear overnight. It atrophies, slowly, through 100 small moments of being rescued before they could finish the thought. And you, feeling the drag, the slowness, the imprecision, step in faster and faster, each time confirming, without a word, that the team cannot do this without you. It is not a power grab. It is a rescue reflex. And it is dismantling the system it believes it is saving. At some point, every person at this level has said the words, "It's just faster if I do it." That sentence has probably cost you more than any bad hire you have ever made. Here is what I mean by cost. When you solve a problem in 40 seconds, you remove the 40 minutes in which your team would have built the capacity to solve it without you next time. Every intervention is an exchange. You get the right answer now. You pay for it with their capability later. Speed is a status signal. It always has been. But at this level, it carries a tax. And the invoice doesn't arrive immediately. It arrives somewhere between 18 months and 3 years later, when you look around and realize that the organization cannot function without your specific brain in the room for any decision that matters. That is not a sign of your indispensability. That is a failure of architecture, and you built it. Stay with me. Because what I'm about to tell you is the part that is genuinely uncomfortable. It is not that you are doing too much. It is that the system you have built has no architecture for your absence, and you designed it that way, not on purpose, but you designed it nonetheless. I want to tell you about a specific meeting. I was running something I had built from the ground up, a team I had hired, trained, and invested in for years. We were in a room. A decision needed to be made, not a complex one. Nothing I hadn't seen a version of 100 times before. And I watched my team defer to me before I had said a single word. They didn't ask me a question. They didn't present options. They looked at me and waited. and I understood, with a clarity that was not comfortable, that the deference wasn't respect. It was a system response. I had trained it into them, not deliberately, not unkindly, but consistently, over hundreds of small moments. I had shown them that my judgment was the ceiling of what was possible in this room, and they had stopped trying to reach above it. The team I had built to be excellent had learned very precisely how to be dependent. The reason high-capability leaders cannot simply decide to let go, the reason it is so much harder than every piece of advice on the subject makes it sound, is not strategy. It is not willingness. It is not even ego, in most cases. It is that letting go requires tolerating a quality of discomfort that your system has never been trained to sit with, watching imprecision, sitting with slower, allowing a suboptimal decision to play out when the optimal one is completely visible to you and would take you 40 seconds to deliver. That tolerance, the ability to stay in your chair, say nothing, and let the room find its own way to the answer, is a skill. A specific, learnable, genuinely difficult skill. And nobody teaches it to the people who need it most, because the people who need it most got to where they are by never developing it. Their intolerance of imprecision was the engine. It built everything, and now it is the ceiling. The hardest thing I ever did professionally was not the work. It was learning to watch someone do the work less well than I could and stay silent long enough for them to develop the ability to do it properly. That gap, between what you could produce and what you allow the room to produce, is where your organization either grows or stops. The clearest sign that you have reached this stage is that your team has stopped disagreeing with you, not because you are always right, because disagreeing stopped feeling worth the effort. When was the last time someone in your organization told you that your idea was wrong, not diplomatically redirected, not gently refined, told you, directly in the room, that you had it wrong? If you have to think about it, that is your answer. Let me tell you what this is not. It is not a delegation problem. Delegation is a task. You can delegate every task on your list and still be the single point through which every significant decision in your organization must pass before it becomes real. It is not a trust problem. You probably trust your team. Trust is not the mechanism. The mechanism is whether the system you have built can generate decisions of sufficient quality when your specific judgment is not available to validate them. Most leaders at this level have never genuinely tested that, because every time the system wobbles, they fix it immediately, efficiently. And in doing so, they ensure the system never learns to hold its own weight. What you have is an architecture problem, and architecture requires a blueprint, not a mindset shift, not a management workshop, not a conversation about trust, a precise, sequenced map of how to withdraw your presence from the decision-making process without the quality collapsing behind you. That blueprint is what the Founders Control Crisis Dossier contains, in full. One last thing before we close. What we've been talking about today is ultimately a decision architecture problem. You built a system where every significant decision flows through one point. But decision architecture has its own failure mode, and it has nothing to do with how many people are in the room, nothing to do with how much data they have, or how experienced they are, or how well the process is designed. It has everything to do with what happens inside the moment the decision actually gets made. Something that overrides logic, overrides experience, overrides everything you thought you knew about how you think under pressure. That's where we're going next. If your organization would wobble without you for 2 weeks, if you recognized that meeting, the one where they looked at you before you'd said a word, if you felt, somewhere in the last 10 minutes, the specific discomfort of being named accurately, the Founders Control Crisis Dossier is what changes that architecture, not by making you less essential, by making the system genuinely more capable. Click the first link in the pinned comment, tonight, right now.